In the words of one of last month's guests, Mike Hazard, Artifacts is packed with a life of art.
Well, we appreciate the compliment, and we think we've got an April show that will live up to that compliment.
Stay tuned to find out why. Artifacts for April is up next.
Hello everyone, I'm Phil Lindsay with the MCDA.
And I'm Janet Zahn with the Office of Film, Video, and Recording.
And we're here to tell you that Artifacts is packed with the life of art in April. It all begins with our first guest, Heather Barringer, who's here to tell us about the 20th anniversary of the musical group Zeitgeist. And she's brought some percussion instruments to play for us as well. So be sure to stay tuned for some magical musicianship.
And the magic will continue when Tim Uren joins Phill to bring you the latest on the Fool's Tree Theater.
And then you'll get a chance to learn about a side of the movie business we've never covered on Artifacts before. That's the business of motion picture publicity and promotion.
Nancy Roehlke of Nemer, Fieger and Associates will be here to tell you all about it.
And then finally, we're honored to welcome local artist Reggie Anderson, whose work is currently being exhibited at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. We'll also see 3 clips from Not a Nickel's Worth of Doubt. That's a documentary about the life and work of Mr. Anderson that was written and directed by local filmmaker Terry Myers.
Good stuff, and lots of it right here on Artifacts.
Now, before we go to our first segment, we wanted to mention our giveaway for the month.
And our giveaway is
a fun-filled,
fabulous,
action-packed tour of the City Cable 34 studios.
And all you have to do to be the proud owner of this tour of the studios,
be a tourist.
Yes, is to be the 13th caller to the City Cable 34 hotline, 673-2234.
Now that's right. Just leave your name, your address, and your phone number on the answering machine. That number again, 673-2234.
And Phil will be back with his first guest from Zeitgeist after this clip from George B., one of 85 of the best new films from around the world that will be showing during the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival, April 11th through the 26th. George B. was produced by Minnesotan Wade Danielson. For more festival information, call 627-4431.
You could make someone a very lucky guy someday.
Really? What makes you say that?
Because you got a good personality. And you're easy to talk to. And you like to have fun.
Tell me more.
Hey, listen, I was thinking, maybe you and I could get together for a while. I got a really big house we could live in. There's plenty of room for both of us. I mean, 2 people who like each other, who get along, should be together.
Is that a fact?
Hey, why not? What do we got to lose?
Well, that was a clip from one of the pieces that you can see at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival, which is a good time. Check it out. It's a good thing to do. Well, my next guest is somebody that I'm very pleased to have on here. She's a percussionist with an eminent Twin Cities musical group. The name of the group is Zeitgeist, and my guest is Heather Barringer. Thanks for being on the show. And I've just got to start with that first question, Zeitgeist. For those of us that don't speak that language, haven't read the right books, what does Zeitgeist mean?
Well, in German, in a literal translation, it means time ghost. Zeit is time, and Geist is ghost. It refers to the spirit of the times at any particular moment in history, sort of a collective whole of what people are thinking, what they're doing, what they value, all of that stuff. So, for instance, if you think of Paris in the early 20s or in the early part of the century, that had a certain zeitgeist to it.
Right.
And what we do is we embody the music of our time. So we play music that is coming from the current time.
Right, and so your repertoire reflects the zeitgeist of the time. What, about the last 20, 25 years or so? You try to stay in a boundary of...
I would say the last 10 to 15.
Oh,
actually.
Really? So very contemporary.
Yeah.
Okay.
The ensemble started in 1977, and I don't believe we play too many pieces that are that much older than that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's 30, but...
yeah, well, 20 years.
20, yeah. Okay.
So as Zeitgeist, as the group continues, you may actually drop off some of the repertoire from the earliest days that the organization
We don't do that consciously,
Okay.
but that does happen. And I
Yeah.
must say that yeah, I would say within 10 to 15 years, most of our stuff is pretty new.
Does music change that dramatically, that noticeably? I suppose to those of you
Yes.
actually in the field, you can look back and say, boy, that's dated. That's 18 years old or something.
Well, I wouldn't use the word dated, because that's somewhat of that can be used as a pejorative. But when the ensemble started in 1977, minimalism was in its heyday. I mean, it was flowering and it was happening. And most of the pieces that were written for the ensemble were minimalist in nature. For those audience members that don't know what that means, it means that you'll take a particular musical fragment and repeat it over and over and over again. In music, a typical minimalist piece will change very slowly and very subtly in that fashion.
And so what's the newer trend that people like yourself are picking up on and explicating for
Well,
audiences?
when it's always difficult to know that you're in a trend when you're in the midst of it.
Right.
And so it's really only later that we can look back and go, aha, well, that was, postmodernism, or that was this. So it's hard to say, but I must say that I feel that pieces are becoming more tuneful. It's also difficult at the end of the 20th century to really label effectively what it is we do, because contemporary music today is so very, very pluralistic in nature. You have pieces that draw on pop culture. You'll have pieces that draw on a certain composer's ethnicity. You'll have pieces that are atonal and 12-tone in nature. You'll have pieces that are minimalist, and you'll have ones that are, I mean, the variety is just...
Now, to the lay person, Heather, it would seem to me that you have to be really in tune with this. I mean, you have to have a lot of training and background to play it, certainly. I mean, what is your background? How did you get into playing this sort of music?
Well, I started in band just like every other little fourth grader, and I was at most attracted to percussion, and that's what I decided I'd do. And I sort of started there, and then I just kept going. I enjoyed all of my musical experiences, and then when I got to college, I was pursuing a music education degree, because you have to do something so that you can make sure you can make a living doing this.
Yeah, it sounds like Mom was talking with you there or somebody.
Well, no, actually not. It was it was myself.
Okay.
I
so
thought
you knew
that
you needed to figure something out to make a living.
And actually, and then I guess I never really put my heart into that part of my studies. I always knew that it became more clear to me as time passed that I was a performer.
You were nice enough to bring an array of your percussion instruments here, or some of them that you work with, and some music that you're going to share with us. Can you walk us through what you brought and what you're about to perform?
Sure.
This will be interesting.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about, let's see. I'll start with the piece.
Okay.
This is a piece by a New York-based composer named David Lang, and he's one of the artistic directors of a group called Bang on a Can. Now, that's sort of looking at the array of junk, basically, that I've got here. It sort of is appropriate.
Okay.
The piece is called the Anvil Chorus, and I was attracted to it because my father is a metal worker. So all of the sounds that you'll hear in this piece are sounds that I really grew up with, and that makes it sort of special to me. In addition, the actual instruments that I'm going to be playing on are pieces of farm implements, or junk that my dad had laying around, and I just went out to the farm one day and just hit on everything and decided what sounded best.
Found the right tones.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful part of family heritage here for you. Well, that's great. And the name of the piece again?
The Anvil Chorus.
The Anvil Chorus. Heather Barringer.
Okay.
silo never sounded so good.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
isn't that true?
Thank you very much. That's wonderful.
You're welcome.
Wow. Now, the composer did not know, he didn't know in advance that somebody would be taking these kinds of instruments together to do this. Now, does he care? Does he give clues or cues as to what he wants you to play on?
Well, he specifies that he wants a bass drum.
Okay.
And he specifies that on a table shall be 3 ringing instruments, or instruments that ring more, and then 4 non-resonant metals. He does ask for 2 wood blocks, and then down here are to be 4 non-resonant metals.
Okay, so those specifications, but then within those constraints, it's your discretion.
Yes.
What's ringing, what's non-resonant. Fascinating. Well, I hope our camera's able to get a little bit of the music in your footwork, because sitting here, which more people should have this opportunity to watch a musician right in the center of her work. Congratulations, that's great. Now, part of the reason I wanted to have you on the show is to talk about Zeitgeist's 20th anniversary. You guys have been around for 20 years, and you're celebrating with, I think, a series of events, but there's one coming up at the Walker. Can you talk a little bit about that?
About the event?
Yeah,
yes,
what are you going to do there? And
well, on May 3rd, we'll be performing at Walker Art Center. The concert is at 8 p.m., and we're playing quite a variety of works. We're going to be, well, one of the ones that we're most excited about is we're going to be playing the winning entries from our 3rd annual song contest. Now, these are pieces that were submitted to us, and they don't need, the word song is a little bit, we meant it in its loosest definition, as just being
broadest application of the concept
the broadest
here.
Possible application of song that you can imagine. So these are our 3 winning entries, and then we take these entries and we take these pieces and we arrange them for our instrumentation.
Great.
And then these pieces are played at the Walker Art Center, and we'll also play a concert in each one of the winners' communities.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we have just a moment left. There's a number people can call if they want to get information for that concert, and I believe you know that number.
Yes, 375-7622.
Okay, and once again, that number for the concert at the Walker, May 3rd is?
375-7622.
Okay, Heather Barringer, thank you very much.
Thank
it was
you
a pleasure.
so much.
It was great. So, Zeitgeist at the Walker early next month. Now, the Twin Cities chapter of what's called the ITVA is holding its annual award ceremony on April 5th to celebrate excellence in local corporate film and video production. Now, our hats go off to the talented segment of the production industry here in the Twin Cities, and we have a clip from one of the winning entries, PowerPak, the movie. It's a corporate film that extols the values of a cleaning agent, cleverly produced by Mike Koski of Media Productions. Then Tim Uren of Fool's Tree Theater will join me right after this. Stay tuned.
I've been expecting you and dying to see this PowerPak. Although I must admit, I thought it would be bigger.
Let's see if you're impressed by better.
You may humor yourself, but let me warn you, even if you could reach our customer with your PowerPak, I think you'll find him well supplied.
I'll see about that.
Let's see if you're ready for ready to use.
Well, PowerPak the movie, I know I'm going out and buying that product immediately because that was fun. Well, my next guest is someone that I'm glad to have on the show because both he and an organization he's with are new to me, but I'm very excited that they exist. And we're talking about Fool's Tree Theater with Tim Uren. Thank you for being on.
Yeah.
Artistic director?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's start with some basics. I know you're up on Lake Street near Lyndale.
Yep.
And you are, I think in more than one meaning of the term, a storefront theater.
Yes.
Why don't you describe Fool's Tree to us?
Fool's Tree is a coffee shop, full-time coffee shop, and a comedy theater. And the storefront nature of it is that you walk in the front door and there's a coffee shop, and you go through a curtain and there's a theater. And that's as complicated as getting into the theater is.
Okay, well that's fine, that's fine. And you can grab a cup of Joe on the way in.
Yeah, for espresso or whatever
that's
coffee
great.
shop needs you have.
And it's a little unusual, though, because essentially what you're saying is that you have this coffee shop, a business, as part of the income stream, I take it, for your overall operation. How come?
That was a decision made because we didn't want to spend all of our time working on grants so that we can squeeze in what we want to do in that little bit of extra time. So we made ourselves a for-profit theater and added the coffee shop part to make sure that actually happens, that there's a profit.
Right, and so far so good?
So far so good. We're still we're looking forward to a pretty successful first year.
Well, that's great. Now, about this time I'd be asking, do you have a background in theater? But I should ask, do you have a background in coffee shops?
No, actually. The truth, the shameful truth, I don't even like coffee.
Okay, okay. But you don't have to in order
it's good, but I have to take other people's word for it.
That's right. Well, I'm a little bit like you, too. It's rare that I drink a cup of coffee, but I love the smell. Same way with theater. I don't do theater,
I love
but
the smell.
I love the smell of theater. The grease paint is great. Let's talk a little bit about Fool's Tree itself. What's your repertoire? What kind of stuff do you do?
We wanted to really focus all our craft on comedy and have a pretty wide horizon of doing sketch comedy, improvisational comedy, full-length plays, one-man shows, or even any other media. We'd love to get like a dance troupe in there.
Seriously? Well,
yeah, just stuff that's all kind of shooting out from the center of comedy.
Okay, but comedy would be the through line.
Yes.
I mean, whether it's a play or sketch or improv or whatever. Very interesting. Now, you're opening. You've just opened, I guess, Reservoir Dogs. By the time people see this show. That seems to be a little bit different from what you closed last month. Now.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs is not meant to be funny. It's not being done in a funny way. But when the director came to me with the suggestion, I took it seriously because I think there's elements of comedy, like mistaken identity, overheard conversations, and I mean, it's slightly farcical in the way it's presented, even though it's not going to make you laugh.
Right, right. Oh, yeah, because as I understand that, I mean, there's some serious, kind of heavy elements to that sort of thing. Do you think that part of the framework of your mindset, your collective mindset with comedy, will that sort of be a subtext to it, do you think? I mean, will you sort of accentuate some of those more humorous undercurrents, that sort of thing? There's some of the elements of the show are meant to be a surprise because don't give
so many people have seen the show. We're kind of also playing with what people may have seen and what they're expecting. And
now, in this show, Reservoir Dogs, I suppose a fairly conventional rehearsal schedule and director, but some of your other work is more of what I would call a workshopped approach.
Yes, the show we just closed was called Prisoners of Warp, and that we got 5 performers together, and they wrote a show and rehearsed it. And
wow. Now, where do you get your performers? Is this an ensemble that does each show, or are you casting folks in? Because Reservoir Dogs, I think you were saying, is like 12 actors.
Yes.
So you're bringing in folks from the outside?
Yep, and for Prisoners of Warp also, we just cast it, sent it on audition.
So how many of you are the core, how many of you are the coffee shop over there?
There's actually about 3 people who are the coffee shop.
Now, do you want to protect them, or can you name names?
Well, the owner is one, Angela Kozel.
Okay, so she owns the coffee shop?
She owns the whole
Oh, the whole thing? Okay, she's got the key.
Director, yep.
Okay, all right. And then you're artistic director?
Yes. And
keeps you away from the coffee a little bit that way.
Not enough.
Not enough, all right, all right. And who else is involved?
That's the real core, and then there's other people who are...
some of your tech people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How about personal background? What's an otherwise nice, sane young man like yourself doing in this crazy business? The
long story. I'll give you the long story.
Okay.
I went to college at the University of Redlands in California, which years before I got there had a big, beautiful theater department, and gradually lost faculty and classes until when I got there was one faculty person and all this theater space and all these equipment.
Yeah.
So I got to do everything. I got to do acting, technical stuff, because no one was there to do it.
Right. Oh, well, that turned, you made lemonade out of a lemon then.
Yeah, it worked really well for me.
That's good. Timing is everything.
Got my hands into everything.
Okay.
And left there and came to Minneapolis and got involved in improvisational comedy and sketch comedy. I worked for Dudley Riggs and Stevie Ray's in town.
Okay. Why Minneapolis? What brought you back to this wonderful climate here? I mean, from California, I mean, and you're thinking, hey, I've got a future in comedy in Minneapolis? I mean, that's kind of funny right there.
Well, as much as I'd love to have a good story for it, a friend of mine was moving here for his girlfriend, and I just tagged along.
Oh, all right. Well, that counts. Originally from?
South Dakota.
Okay, and so you bounced you got one step out of this climate, and then you decided to come
came back.
Who's your audience? Who's coming to see Fool's Tree Theater?
It's surprising. I thought it would be, when we first got started, I thought it would be mostly university students and this coffee shop crowd, kind of, but it's a lot wider than I thought.
A little more general audience.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Storefront theater, how many do you seat there?
50.
Okay, so that really is storefront kind of thing there.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's great. Other projects in the works? Probably veering back towards the comedy, I'm going to guess?
Yes. One of the first shows we did was called The Geek Show, which was sketch comedy with all the very kind of marginalized sci-fi comic book humor.
Okay.
And it went very well, and I enjoyed it a lot myself. And so the people who were kind of responsible for that, I got them back together again.
Yeah.
And our next show is called Mars, Planet of Men.
Tim, I'm kind of picking up a little theme here, and I'm not sure about Prisoner of Warp, but is there sort of a science fiction theme that runs through some of these things here?
I was a big comic book sci-fi geek myself, so it's hard to avoid it.
All right, so if it crawls over the horizon, it just might find a friendly artistic director at Fool's Tree. Oh, I've got to ask that question. Fool's Tree Theater, whence the name? What does that
The name
imply?
is from a William Blake quote, "The fool sees not the same tree that the wise man sees."
I had no idea we'd be quoting William Blake here.
I wasn't expecting to.
That's great. Fool's Tree Theater. We've got just a moment left, and I want to make sure that people know the phone number they can call if they want to find out about upcoming shows or tickets or good coffee, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The phone number is 822-1225.
Okay. Once again, that number is?
822-1225.
Okay. And last question. I know you're up there on Lake Street just off of Lyndale.
Yes.
Pretty fertile area for arts and entertainment and stuff. Is that why you chose to be there, or was there just an open storefront, or what? Why there?
Both the neighborhood location and the Calhoun building that we're in is getting revitalized, and a lot of fun, exciting things going on in that building.
There's a gallery, I know, and other artists up there as well. Well, Tim, thank you very much for being on and sharing with us Fool's Tree Theater.
Yeah,
that's
thank
great.
you.
Lyndale and Lake, South Minneapolis. Next, Janet talks movie promotion and publicity with Nancy Roehlke from Nemer, Fieger and Associates. Now, this will happen right after this clip from one of the movies Nancy's firm is promoting this month. Stay tuned.
Our story begins eons ago.
Hit it, ladies!
Back when the world was new.
The end is coming!
The planet Earth was down on its luck.
Oh, we're in trouble!
And everywhere gigantic brutes called Titans ran amok.
What you folks need is a hero.
Yeah? And who are you?
I happen to be a hero.
Walt Disney Pictures presents
Who was the gladiator?
Hercules!
Why does that name ring a bell?
I don't know. Maybe we owe him money?
He's the strongest man on Earth.
Aren't you a damsel in distress?
I can handle this. Have a nice day.
He's the nicest guy in town.
Don't let your guard down because of a pair of big goo-goo eyes!
But he's having a devil of a time.
Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. Hi, how you doing?
We are worms!
Memo to me, maim you after my meeting.
Trying to prove himself.
Is this kid gonna mess up my hostile takeover bid or what?
A hero is only as good as his weapon.
Use your head!
Let's get ready to rumble! My favorite part of the game. Sudden death.
This summer.
Come on!
take off on an epic new adventure.
I'm right behind you, kid. I'm way behind you, kid.
Featuring a monster cast.
Destroy.
Guys, Olympus would be that way.
A hotshot villain.
I've got 24 hours to get rid of this bozo, and you are wearing his merchandise.
And one true hero. From the creators of Aladdin and the Little Mermaid.
Didn't know you had a famous father, did you?
Comes the man.
Hercules!
Hercules.
The myth.
I'm an action figure.
The movie.
And hey, 2 thumbs way, way up.
Hercules.
We dance, we kiss, we schmooze, we carry on, we go home happy. What do you say? Come on.
And that was Hercules. And this is Nancy Roehlke from Nemer, Fieger & Associates. Welcome, Nancy.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Tell me about Hercules. When are we going to be seeing it in the theaters?
Well, Hercules is the new Walt Disney Pictures release that will come out this summer, the animated feature, and it comes out at the end of June.
Oh, very exciting. It looks really fun. Kind of classic Disney animated feature.
Yep.
And they're, I suppose, going to be going full guns with all the promotion for that.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of the first, things that they're doing for this movie, seeing it on Artifacts.
Yep, exactly.
Part of the plan. I want to get it on Artifacts right away. All right, Nancy, so you are the Director of Motion Picture Publicity and Promotions for Nemer Fieger. Tell me a little bit about your agency. What is overall, what are you responsible for?
Nemer Fieger is a full-service advertising agency. We do media buying, we do publicity and promotions, we do special event planning, public relations. Subway Sandwiches is a big account that we work on. And then we do the movie promotions and publicity, which is the department I work in. And we're a group of 5 full-time and 1 part-time and numerous interns.
And you work full-time promoting. Your department promotes movies.
Yep. So for all the releases that come out, we get a directive from the studio that has, we set up preview screenings, we set up press screenings.
Tell me about preview screenings. I suppose everyone that's watching our show has at one time or another seen an ad that they can go and see a film before it's released. What's the strategy that a company is, or a movie company is trying to do with those?
The strategy is to get, as everybody knows, there are so many movies in the marketplace, and it's become more and more important for that opening weekend to really decide if a movie's going to stay in the theaters or if it's going to, have to leave right away. So our job is to get as much word out about a movie before it opens so that, opening day is not the first time people hear about it. So when we do the preview screenings, if we get a full theater, 500 people to see a show, the hope is that they'll love the show, they'll go tell other friends, their friends will go opening weekend and pay for it.
You talked a little bit about the fact that you do screening reports. You are watching those people who are watching.
Yeah.
What do you watch for?
Basically, what we do is we watch for what scenes people respond to. If there's, laughter, if anybody walks out of the show, take a little note.
2 people walk out.
Yeah, and then we record the demographics of the audience, by age and ethnicity. And then we send these screen reports into the studio, and a lot of times they'll pull those kind of favored scenes for TV ads. And
So that's part of how we see the trailer, for example, that we just saw, and different trailers that they do. The screenings may have an impact on that. I did not know that. Oh, it's all such a big plan, isn't it? Tell me about this market a little bit. I'm wondering if any of the studios that you work for, if they have a profile of this market, or if they bring particular kinds of movies here to screen to see what kind of response they'll get over others.
I know Minneapolis does really well with art films. It's the Uptown and the Lagoon. Even with adding the Lagoon with 4 more screens of art film, those things just sell out. And Minneapolis is really seen as a more sophisticated market as far as that goes. It's also really big for family films.
Well, that makes sense. Both of those things make sense. So in other words, a particular film that's going to come out, an art film, then would definitely want to hit Minneapolis as a preview screening place, if they do previews.
Yep.
But they don't always, you were explaining to me.
No, not always. And there could be there's a number of reasons. It could be a budget reason, because when we do rent, we rent the theater, we pay a fee for that, and there's ticket printing and the mailing. It's a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. So depending on what kind of budgets studios have, that makes a difference. And then, sometimes we'll do 10 preview screenings. And the idea behind that is if it's a strong picture, but maybe doesn't have like really big stars. We want people to, take a chance. Here's a free ticket, I'll go.
Right.
And surprise, it's great.
Tell their friends, and everybody comes. What studios do you work for?
Personally, I work on the Buena Vista account, which is Walt Disney Pictures, Touchstone Pictures, Hollywood Pictures. Then I also work on 20th Century Fox. And then Gina Paz in our office works on Paramount Pictures and Gramercy Pictures. Joe Quam works on Orion Pictures, Fine Line Features, and New Line Cinema. And then Chad Olson works on Columbia Pictures, TriStar Pictures, Live Entertainment, and MGM-UA.
All of them, all the big guys. Well, big companies. So, for example, give me an example. We can proudly say that Fargo, a film that was made locally, just had some very exciting news from the Academy Awards. And there was an event up in Fargo.
Yep, actually the Fargo Theater, they showed the Academy Awards on the big screen. I think their theater seats like 800 people. And so Gina, since she works on the Gramercy account, they had her go up there and take care of national media. I think there were like 8 national media people that came in to cover the event. Kristen Redwood, who played the wife who gets kidnapped, she was there too. So Gina also was a talent handler for her, getting her to her interviews. And
so that's the kind of typical thing that you might do. So give me another example of a movie that you worked on recently and what kinds of stuff you provided them for an opening. Or doesn't have to be an opening, whatever.
Well, let's see, sometimes we do PA tours.
What's a PA tour?
PA tour stands for Personal Appearance Tour.
Okay.
And that's when a studio will fly a talent in to 5 markets, 10 markets, whatever they make their deal with the actual talent is. That person will come in and we'll set up a media schedule, and they'll see Bill Carlson at WCCO, talk to the 2 daily critics, in our weekly paper, and do some radio interviews. And so it's our job to like set up hotel, set up limo, set up the itinerary, take them to these different media outlets.
So you've worked with some of the big stars that have come through town? And generally...
Some of the small ones.
Yeah, some of the small ones, sure. So as you're working with some of those people that are coming through, is that a difficult thing? I mean, I suppose different people respond differently to being shuttled around and being in a, Minneapolis.
Yeah. A lot of times when talent are traveling on PA tours, depending on where Minneapolis is in their schedule, I mean, you always hope you get them at the beginning, because then they're excited to do it. But usually by the end, they're very tired.
Right.
Typically, the questions are very similar, so it's going from city to city, same questions, and I mean, they even start losing track of where they are,
Another part of what you do is sitting right here in front of us. These are things that you send out to the press. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what these are and why you send them to the press?
Okay, some of these are press mailings and some of them are promotional items. Okay. For example, when 101 Dalmatians came out, the live-action version, this was a press mailing. And the studio sends these out to like the daily papers across the country. And it's just a little object that says, "This movie's opening."
Write about it.
So that's one example.
Okay.
And then Jungle to Jungle just recently opened, which stars Tim Allen. And I have a couple items from that. One is the Statue of Liberty.
Wouldn't we just all die?
It's a flashlight.
Yes. Very cool. Very cool.
So that's one. And then also the boy in the film had a pet spider. And so the spider's name was Matika. Whoops. And so they sent out these Matika press mailings. He jumps around. And they come with, a card that, it's about the movie.
And what, interesting.
And when it's opening. This basketball here is for the 6th man. This is actually a promotional item. So sometimes we'll get hats, things like this, T-shirts, to get out into the public's hands.
Right. And this is one of them. That's pretty cool. Fun stuff.
Yeah. And then like for The Sixth Man, we have a screening tonight
Right.
that we're going to have a post-screening party at one of the nightclubs.
And we'll get these, and that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Well, what's the most challenging part of your business?
I think the most challenging thing is a lot of things happen last minute. Like release dates can change just like that. You know, you can have screenings set. Like for example, the last of the Star Wars trilogy. You know, we had screenings set up, press. You know, we also have to coordinate with press so that they can see the film to get an opening day review in. And you know, since the first two were doing so well, they pushed the last one back.
Right.
So then like it was trying to move the screening. You know, but tickets were out, and then you go into the should we move it? Should we keep it? Thankfully, we ended up keeping it where it was, but. So that happens a lot. And then also depending on the kind of the deadlines that the studios are under and their marketing teams, they might have a producer or director come in and say, I want to know right now what's happening in the field, you know, which is the country. And they'll, you know, send out some emergency memo that, you know, they need a report right now. You know, and it's like they're just as under the gun.
Yep, and you have to grab everything and get it done.
Yes, yep.
High pressure. High pressure. But you guys are doing a great job. I think it's very exciting. Sounds kind of a like a very interesting career.
It is. It is.
Good. Thanks, Nancy, for coming. I appreciate your being here
Thanks
today.
for having me.
And don't forget the Fabulous Artifacts giveaway this month, the tour of the fabulous City Cable 34 studios. Just be the 13th caller to the City Cable 34 hotline, 673-2234, and you could be the big winner. And now, if you've visited the Minneapolis Institute of Arts sometime in the last 24 years, chances are you've met or seen our next guest. Reggie Anderson has worked at the front desk of the Institute for a quarter of a century, and you'll have the opportunity to meet him right after this clip from Not a Nickel's Worth of Doubt. This film by Terry Myers chronicles Anderson's rebirth as an artist after nearly 30 years of absence from the public world of art.
In art school, Reggie experimented with whimsical cubism, but quickly discovered his love for non-objective art. His vision has progressed, but has remained remarkably clear and consistent. This 1963 work in pencil, watercolor, and pastel addresses many of the same formal issues as do his later tape collages.
He really does fit in with the abstract expressionists in the 1940s and into the 1950s. And when I think about the various people that he's attracted to, Georgia O'Keeffe, Ralston Crawford, Stuart Davis, and even Amédée Ozenfant, some of his later work. They're all artists who have a vision and are able to take, even if there's a figurative notion, to abstract it, to pare it down. And Reggie does that in his work. He's a master of using color in a way that it overlays each other and produces this luminosity and translucency.
Reggie is pushing limitations here. I mean, he's discovering things. I think he loves in his work the sense of discovery.
This is reduced about the same way that the Blue Horses is.
Right.
And I find that extreme subtlety in there, and I want to just constantly look at it.
Then he started using some of these transfer techniques where he'd take tape and take newspaper images or text and transfer it something in the way that Rauschenberg was doing.
There's no space between Reggie's forms. Reggie's forms overlap and layer, but there's enormous depth. The end of his work is when he decides where the edges are. He doesn't care about if it's horizontal or vertical. That's irrelevant. But where that met cuts off is very important. This is how he defined the work. And this is what he made. You can see some of the lyrical lines. You can see some of the layering.
Well, that was a nice look in two ways, because one, it highlighted a little bit of the early days of my next guest, who's an artist in town, and interestingly, it was done by Terry Myers, who happens to be his niece, and I thought it was a nice film that she did. Reggie Anderson is here. He's an artist. He currently has a show up at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, and it's a pleasure to welcome the artist and an old friend, Reggie Saunders, the artist. It's good to see you.
Happy to see you, Phil.
Nice to see you here.
Yeah.
First of all, let's clear up on the name, because I've known you about 25 years or so as Reggie Anderson, but it is Reggie Saunders. when you're putting your art on display for people. Do you want to explain why you did that? And
well, I did that mainly because at the time we were at the Walker Art School. There were 2 or 3 other people there in painting class whose last names were Anderson. So I said, I'm the only fake, so I'll change mine.
Just your luck to be in Minnesota with all these Andersons running around. And Saunders
Right.
was a maiden name of somebody?
Of
or your
my
father?
mother.
Your mother, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I use that.
And Terry's film showed me a few things. I had not known all the different art schools hereabouts that you took part in.
Well,
Walker?
I got most everything out of the Walker, and then I went over to the university also, and those 2, I had to go to the Minneapolis Art School at the time because the family wanted me to have a paper, you know.
Yeah, well, let's see, a diploma or a credential?
The union card.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
The first degree.
That's the first degree.
So I did that, but it wasn't a good time at all. I could not do my best work. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
You work in a variety of media. We were talking before the camera started rolling. You sing, which I did not know until very recently. You write poetry, and then within your visual art, you have explored, I don't even know where to begin, the use of color, clipped materials, and tape and things, and put these lyrical pieces together. We'll look in a moment at another clip from Terry's film. Do you want to describe a little bit about where the art comes from when you're sitting there at your drawing table?
I work mainly off of intuition, and I can remember being home one day from art school, and my mother was asking me, what is it I'm studying now? And I told her that I had to take a class on color, and she said, okay, but why don't you really learn about what there is in nature? So I was asking her exactly what she meant by that. Well, I found out about intuition from her, so I thought, well, I might as well do this. And all of these pieces here, you see, I do them off of intuition. That's what I sense. That's what I work with all the time. But anyway, she said, get down close to a flower, and she said, look under it where the blossom is attached to the stem. And she said, look at the color as it changes from that stem where it goes into the blossom, and then around on the outside, and then go down inside of it. And she said, that's all the color you'll ever need.
That was like your first art class right there.
Yeah. And I've been doing that ever since.
Bless your heart. Would you share with us the 2 or 3 of these that you've brought? I know you brought a portfolio here, but I think these are great examples of some of the different areas you're working in.
Well, some of the influences, I think, I wasn't able to go to school to study afterwards, just right here in State. But I've had to look at books of the people I was interested in, and I liked the sheer beauty of O'Keeffe. And when I first found out about her, I used to run around asking people, have you ever seen any reproductions of the work of O'Keeffe? And they were always going, oh who?
Oh who?
Yes. Well, this idea
and just tilt that. Yeah, that right about there.
I got from looking at Oriental art. As you see, the landscape, as I call it anyway. I don't do specific on the site landscapes. I try to do landscapes of the mind. And it's this way rather than...
That's a good point. Sure, this is not horizontal, this is a vertical landscape.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to take and make work as a landscape. And this way, it does.
It forces the viewer to focus on it in a way that I wouldn't if it was horizontal.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
But now this is a different expression here altogether.
This is, the color comes...
Can we turn that just this way for the, yeah, a bit down here, yeah.
Okay. The color comes out of the newspapers, the Sunday papers, the ink.
That's ink from the newspaper.
But you have to do it a certain way, and also you have a time limit on it, because when it begins to harden, then it's awfully difficult to take off. And also the kind of tape you use and the way you take it off, all of those things are involved.
Wonderful. I love the color and the rhythm of how the color is on that piece there. That's nice.
So that's, I did that, and here I'm trying to get, this is crayon, graphite, and pencil.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the camera can pick up enough of this detail, because there's a richness in there that as a viewer, if you can spend the time and get into that, there's really something in there to partake.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what again, now this is crayon, pencil?
Yeah.
Wow.
And graphite.
And the graphite.
Now, you see here where the hair-like lines, those are pencil.
Okay.
Where it begins to widen out, that's where the graphite is.
Gosh, that's minute work, Reggie.
Yeah, it is.
Now, do you do that unaided, or do you use a microscope or a magnifying glass or something?
No,
How do you get that
I only, these glasses aren't exactly what I need, and so I use a glass only when the glasses aren't working.
When it's not the right.
I need some.
Okay. Reggie, we've got just a couple moments left. Before we go on here, let's take another look at a clip from the film that Terry did, Not a Nickel's Worth of Doubt, and then we'll come right back.
All right.
So come right up here.
You're rugged, sloppy, unheard of, lousy. I can remember those paintings. I thought they were really terrible back then. And I told my wife, God, I think I was probably wrong. I'll bet they were some of the best things done at that time.
Layers and layers and layers, as if meaning is veiled. His pieces also have a quality of lyricism. Lines are soft and elegant.
The ways in which color and texture and the varieties of surfaces, the attempts to achieve the illusions of depth, or in Reggie's case of ideas of translucency or transparency. All these metaphors are used by artists working in other media, certainly jazz musicians.
Well, Reggie has tremendous vision. He really is a master of abstraction. what's so special about Reggie, as I talk with him, is seeing that he's had this vision for a long time.
I often pestered Reggie. You know, you look, the little pieces you showed me look a whole lot better than this cat we're bringing in from wherever we were finding the artists to display. Why don't you step up?
Well, Reggie, that was just a little glimpse of some of the work that Terry caught. You have another piece here we wanted to talk about very briefly. What can you tell us about this piece here?
This one here is what I describe as my way of drawing, because there are all these people out there that are doing a drawing that much of it is the same. You know, one is drawing like the other, I thought I would like to have a little something that's a bit more personal to me.
Right.
And so this is the way I've chosen to do it. And as I'm getting into this more and more, I hear by this working this way, I hear the rhythm of the city. I see compression and expansion when you're taking off or landing in a plane, because then you get this, here, and you begin to
vibrational.
Look at it this way, yeah. And I thought it relates to both cacophony of sound and also to
sort of the geography, the terrain.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating. We have to go. Reggie, your show, Reginald Saunders, is at the Institute of Arts, I believe, through April 20th.
That's right.
Congratulations on a great exhibit.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being on the show. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, Janet will join me to wrap up the show right after this final clip from Not a Nickel's Worth of Doubt. Stay tuned.
He was as conscious of his own ethnicity and his own rich culture as anybody I had met. I didn't really harass Reggie about his art when I realized that he was making his own decisions on where he wanted to go with it.
There's this misreading of abstraction, that abstraction doesn't belong to Europeans. It's not a sort of a white form. It's not a sort of Euro language. I think if you look back at African art and you look at the institution of jazz, I think that there are very strong correlations between visual work that is abstract and certain kinds of structures in jazz music and improvisation, intuition, and you can look at African textiles and you find these very complex but highly abstract languages.
You know what, Janet?
Yeah.
This is a show I'd watch.
Absolutely.
Great.
I was so inspired by Reggie. He was just wonderful. What a guy.
He's a good man. Really, get it if you get a chance. Go to the Art Institute. A number of good exhibits going on over there, but see Reggie's show. I think it's up through the 20th of April. And Nancy had interesting things.
Yes.
That is a part of the industry I've always wanted to learn more about.
Yeah, she is a crazy business.
Yeah.
That is the crazy.
As we sometimes do, I've got a few sort of up-and-coming events here. The Youth Performance Company is having its annual, well, what they call Cattle Call. It's a benefit. It's going to happen over at the Fine Line Music Cafe in the Warehouse District, April 13th. You might want to think about that. Oh, and as long as we're talking about the Art Institute, they do a thing every year where they get folks that work with flowers to do this art in bloom. They're assigned an image, one of the paintings, at the Institute, and then they create this marvelous floral arrangement inspired by the artwork. Go see it. They have like a couple hundred, I don't know.
See, now my thing would be to do just like Reggie's mom said, is to go to those and look at those flowers from the stem.
Yeah, now wasn't that inspiring? And last note here I wanted to mention is that on May 6th, Very Special Arts Minnesota will be hosting the 6th annual National Native American Very Special Arts Festival, and on that Tuesday, May 6th, down at the Minneapolis Convention Center, they're going to have like 75 artists, beadwork, basket making, computer graphics, dance and music making. So that sounds like a great event.
Sounds like great fun, and before we go, I also want to say congratulations to everybody in town who worked on Fargo, 2 Academy Awards. That is so exciting.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
4 thumbs
4.
up. So that was good. So grab your pencils. We'll have a calendar of events at the end of this show. I want to thank the crew for going the extra mile on this one.
Yep.
Janet, it's always a pleasure.
Always.
All right. I'm Phil Lindsay.
I'm Janet Zahn.
We'll see you next time on Artifacts.